It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. Go check us out on YouTube if you haven't already. Go subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the videos, and leave a comment of anything you like that you're seeing, or if you have a question that we can answer in a future episode, let us know while you're watching over on YouTube, or if you're on the listening platforms. Go check out the description. We've got links in there, and our top link is Year 7 of Rocking Around the 412. It's our Christmas fundraiser that we are going to continue to promote until mid-December. I know the cutoff date for when we partner with the East Rochester Salvation Army, correct me if I'm wrong, December 9th. That sounds
December
like
9th.
the right date in my head. December 9th. If you we collect tags, and you can get tags off of their angel tree with the East Rochester Salvation Army, as well as we also get families that we provide Christmas for individually as well. The GoFundMe link is in the description of the show. It's going to be there till mid-December, and you can donate there. You can share it there as well. Copy the link, paste it to your Facebook, Twitter, wherever. Just try to get as many eyeballs on it as we can. Going to try to continue to do that. As we mentioned, this is the Steelers show, and I was talking to you a little bit about it before, about how much that must have sucked to experience that in person, but I want to hear it now on the show. Being at the game.
Well, hold on. Before we dive into the negative of things here, we debuted this on Steelers Saturday Sit Down, but this is the first Around the 412 podcast episode we recorded.
That's
true.
We
got the backdrop here created by our boy Joe Frick. So shout out to him for creating this template for us. I think it looks awesome. If you're somebody that watches on YouTube, I think you'll appreciate it more. If you're a listener, well, you got no idea what I'm talking about. Head on over to YouTube and check out what we got now. We got a new little overlay thing that Joe created for us. So shout out to Joe. Hope you guys are also supporting the Around the 412 Fantasy Show, because Joe hosts that with Drew every single week, getting you ready for your fantasy football matchups. I myself find the information very useful. I think that you will too. So shout out to Joe again for creating this. But yes, Sunday night football was really juiced up for this one. Steelers Cowboys, first time ever playing on Sunday Night Football, which is kind of hard to imagine when you consider just the historical context of the two franchises. And then,
so when they played 8 years ago, was it a Monday night game?
That was like
a night game too. 8 years.
It was a 425.
Oh, was it
or something like that? Yeah,
it must have been late in the year, and it just got dark early.
Yeah, it was. It was in December.
So I remember when that game ended. I remember it being dark whenever we took the lead, and then Zeke scored to take the lead back.
Or no, it was it was in November, because that was like the last that put them at like 4, and then they just ripped off a long winning streak like right after that game in 2016. Okay. So it was like
I just remember November. It was dark when it was that was happening.
But yeah, anyway, so like get into the stadium, and it was beautiful all day up until the game. And then, like, it wasn't even raining yet, but they knew that it was on the way. So we go into a weather delay. And at first they tell you, like, you can stay in your seats or whatever. That was maybe 5 minutes. And then they come around and they're like, nah, yeah, you got to go into the concourse. So I'm standing in the concourse, end up having a like hour conversation with this dude about tattoos. He was a big fan of mine. His kind of sucked, but he was a big fan of mine. We were talking about that for a bit. End up being able to go back in, and the vibes were just off for me from the get-go about the game. I don't know why. Just like I went back into my seat, and I was like, man, just something feels off about this game. And Dallas was doing whatever they wanted offensively. The only thing that was stopping Dallas's offense was Dallas's offense. Like, I know the Steelers were able to take the ball away, but it was just Dak making some brain-dead plays at times. They were moving the ball with ease on the defense. The Steelers offense yet again slow out of the gate. Lack of explosive plays. Actually had a couple drops in this one, which is the one thing that the offense really hadn't done up until this point. But that happened in this game. You had the Connor Hayward drop. You had a Van Jefferson drop. A couple more that, maybe you consider drops. I don't know. They were borderline, but those two for sure were weren't able to run the ball. I thought that they would be able to against this Dallas front. There was a point in time. I thought that they were going to lose this game for basically 50 minutes of the game. When Pat scored that touchdown, but to get that moment where like we were all waiting to see if it would happen because of the Players Tribune article to see if he was going to hand the ball back to the ref. Immediately did it. Yeah, I got a little emotional actually in the stadium when that moment happened. It was really cool. And I was like, okay, this is a sign. Like things are going to go our way. The Steelers are once again going to find a way to pull this one out, and we'll just be able to complain about how they did it. Not looking very good, but being able to find a way to win as they've done so many times. And that's kind of why I was like, the defense hasn't been good today, but they'll probably get this one stop that they need to at the end of this game. And then they go down to like the 2-yard line, and Landon Roberts with one of the best plays I've ever seen. And I don't think she talked about now because it's in a losing effort, pops that ball out with that diving play on, was it Rico Dowdle was the back, because I was surprised they didn't bring him on the goal line, but it was Rico Dowdle who lit up the Steelers in total yards in this game. But Landon makes that play, pushes them back to the 4-yard line. And I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, so now I'm thinking again that we got this. Like the Steelers defense should get this one stop, get the 3rd down stop as well, and then on 4th down, the Cowboys make one more play. Jalen Tolbert with a game-winning touchdown on 4th down. The Steelers fall short of winning this game by literally one play. Like, that's what sucks about all of this. We get an hour and a half rain delay. I get an hour of sleep, or I'm sorry, 4 hours of sleep. I had the hour stuck in my head because the hour and a half. 4 hours of sleep by the time that I get home. Have to wake up, and then unrelated to football here, but just bringing you behind the fourth wall into my life and what I do outside of this. There was a massive credit card scam hacked thing that happened over the weekend, and it affects our company because of what I do for work. I had to have taken nearly 300 calls on Monday talking to customers. Literally the busiest day of work that I've had in my entire life since coming back to this company. So ridiculous. And of course it happens following this. So again, not related to football, but just letting you behind the fourth wall. I would say within the last 2 years, between last year's home opener, last year's game against the Cardinals, this game, 3 least enjoyable game experiences I've had. And that's not to take away from the people that I've shared these experiences with. I don't want to slight them, but just in terms of the game itself, least enjoyable game that I've watched 3 times within the last 2 years.
Yeah, it seemed pretty miserable. Starting off with the weather delay, just the fact that you're already on Sunday Night Football. You're on Sunday Night Football, so you're not kicking off till 8:20 Eastern. The fact that you're not kicking off until 9:50 p.m. Eastern, that's tough. I mean, it's tough on the fan. I'm sure that's tough on the players, especially because as a player, you probably feel it a little bit as a fan, but as a player, you get the adrenaline going, and then you have to sit for an hour and a half, and then that adrenaline has.
How did you feel on watching the broadcast? What did it seem like, the crowd? Because I didn't think that there was a massive drop off there, but
I didn't think the crowd was that bad. No, I didn't. I didn't think the crowd. It seemed fine. Like nobody seemed to leave. They stayed at the stadium and everything like that. But yeah, the game just in general felt. I agree with you that something felt off about the game coming back from the weather delay. Like even through watching it on TV in my living room, I felt like something was off. And maybe it's just because of how they were performing too, that was something playing into my feelings. But I just felt like after that weather delay, something didn't seem like it was going to go well. And I thought the Cowboys were going to open this one up and win this game bigger than I thought they were. I thought the Steelers did a good enough job to make it a game that they did, considering the lack of offensive production that they did get in this game. And there was a lot of, I guess you can call it bend, don't break from the defense, because they let up a ton of passing yards. And although they did end up losing the game, they broke a couple times. But there were several times where they did bend a lot until Dallas made a mistake. I mean, the couple of picks that Dak threw in this game, that helped out the Steelers dramatically, and that's not necessarily something that the Steelers were doing. I wouldn't say that either of those picks were phenomenal, like athletic plays by either guy. I just think by either Jackson or Joey Porter Jr. I just think that it was more so Dak making errant throws and the Steelers just being opportunistic from the opportunities they got to make plays on the ball. But there were still definitely some defensive issues in this game. They could literally move the ball at ease for the most part. It seemed like at any point, if the Steelers were not getting a pass rush, someone was going to be open. If there was no pressure on Dak, someone was open. And on third down, I mean, they finished 9 for 15, I believe, on third down. Terrible.
Yeah, the last 2
effort
weeks have
on
been
that. It's been awful on third down. They were 8 for 15 against the Colts, Joe Flacco, and 9 for 15 in this one. It's been disappointing to see that area of the defense getting attacked on, and then it's almost like I don't even know what to say about the offense at this point as far as like a statistical and scoring standpoint, because we're 5 weeks in. Before the season, we kind of knew what they were. At this point in the season, we still knew what they were. So while it's still frustrating to actually watch it play out during a game, I don't know what else I could say that's not going to be anything that I said differently outside of a few specific areas and maybe a few specific players, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But from an overall effort from the offense, I just thought it was just more of the same. Like, it's not, I don't think that it was a like good effort at all, but and then like it's not their best effort because that was probably the second half against the Chargers for sure. But it's kind of like a continuation of what we saw last week, in my opinion. In the last 2 weeks, they from that Chargers game, they've taken a step down. And so that's why I don't even want to like talk about how I feel negatively about the offense a ton, just because I feel like that's just so easy to talk about and something we've talked about too much.
I mean, yeah, they're not it's not a good group of players. Like compared
They are
to
who
like
they are.
everybody in the NFL is good, but like compared to other offenses around the league, they just don't have the horses. I mean, you don't have any playmakers outside of George and Pat right now. Like Najee's clearly not healthy and he's not been good. The offensive line has not been good. Justin's been okay. He's definitely been better than I expected. When you have this roster, you look around, there's not a ton of game changers. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I am wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. Ton of different Steelers t-shirts on the site right now, and I'm sure more on the way, so go check them out. Use code AT412 to save $10, whether that is at gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Just recently came out with a new design which highlights the Steelers' 6 Super Bowl championships. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about the offensive side of things in this one. Again, I thought that they left some meat on the bone in terms of the couple of drops that they had. I didn't think Justin was very good, especially in the first half. Made some plays, obviously the Connor Hayward touchdown. I thought was a nice play design. Pat touchdown, which actually basically the same draw up as his first career touchdown against the Bengals, like looked very similar. I don't know if it's the exact same play, but it seemed to be a relatively similar concept. But again, when you can't run the ball and that's supposed to be the Steelers' bread and butter, I'm not expecting it to be a good day at the office. That's what they need to be able to do on the offensive side of the ball. And this offensive line just isn't getting them going right now. Like they're not gelling in that way. And Najee has been very good behind them. You don't have the playmakers on the perimeter. This is probably Van Jefferson's most productive game. And what do you have, like 3 catches for like, I don't know, 18 yards, something like that. I don't even know. I haven't looked at the box score, but I'm just taking a stab there. I know he had multiple catches and he was probably somewhere in the teens in terms of his yardage.
3 catches for 26 yards.
26. Okay.
Hey,
right.
You were underselling him a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Van. Here's the thing, though, and this is where I do want to talk about the offense. The one thing that I can appreciate from Van is the effort. The other receiver, the receiver on the other end, I can't say the same thing for George Pickens. And this comes back to a conversation that we've had how many times now in his very short Steelers tenure. Like I really try. I'm typically on the side of the player. I've tried to give this dude so many chances. I'm done. I'm done with George Pickens. I know that that's a very harsh statement to make. It's very blunt. And I don't expect, I don't, if I'm taking a guess right now, I still think he's going to be on the football team for the rest of this year. Think that. But for me to even be saying that in week 5 is a drastic turn from where I thought I'd be prior to the season. I just think when you have people in the organization, whether it be players or personnel now on the team that are very clearly fed up with the situation. Like, let me just say this. There was 2 plays that he got called out for against Indianapolis. So not even in this game, the week prior, Tomlin chewed him out for 2 different plays against Indianapolis where he wasn't putting forth effort. And then he goes into this game, and I'm sure you've seen the clips, and I'm sure people watching or listening to this have seen the clips where he's very clearly not going 100%. Then he has the whatever that was at the end of the game with Jordan Lewis. I don't know if you've picked up on this. Alan and I talked about it. Somebody pointed out with the mouthpiece, like if it's in, he's the first read, he's getting the ball. If it's out, it's either a run play or he's not the first read. And it's like a tell for the defenses with him doing that. I don't know if it's intentional or not. I'd hope not. But it's obviously not something that he should be doing. Going back to last year, there's just been so many things with this guy. And I think that we're coming to a head here with George's time in Pittsburgh. Do I think he's going to be traded right now? Not necessarily. I think that we could be heading in that direction. And I will put it out there right now that I do not believe that he signs a second contract in Pittsburgh. So like I said, I'm done with the guy. I don't expect this that the Steelers are as of right now, but I'm over George Pickens.
I'll take it a step further. I've thought about this a lot, how I felt about him. And his performance on Sunday, what I saw after the game with the clips that were going around of him and his effort and what we've had in the history of George Pickens. And let me just start with this. I am sick of having a wide receiver issue when it comes to personalities in our wide receiver room. Whether it is George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster, Antonio Brown, it just seems like we have gone down the pecking order. And I feel like, honestly, out of all of those people, Juju was the least of a problem. People just didn't like that he was on TikTok. But
yeah, honestly, I know that there was some stuff with Deontay, but if I'm ranking them, it's AB, it's George, it's Chase, Deontay, then Juju. I think those two, there's probably a gap too between the others as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I hate that for the past 6+ years, we've been dealing with this issue of having a receiver that has some mental issues when it comes to them being dramatic on the sideline, them not giving effort in a game. That it drives me nuts. And maybe it is just because I was too young, but I don't remember Hines Ward being like that. I don't remember Santonio Holmes being like that. I don't remember Mike Wallace being like that. I just feel like it's been a bad luck. It's been bad luck for the Steelers when it comes to how some of the receivers have been so far over the last 5+ years. Saying that, I said I was going to take it a step further. I'm at the point where I openly want them to trade him. I want them to trade George Pickens because I cannot stand for the lack of effort. I do not care how frustrated you are about how poor your offense is, about how much you're not getting the ball, even though you're always effing open. I can't stand for it. It drives me nuts to see someone at that level with that talent pouting and giving 50 to 75% on any given play, or even less than that sometimes. It's absolutely ridiculous to me. I want somebody that is bought in. I would rather take somebody that has less skill, that is going to be bought into what the Steelers are trying to do, than have someone like George Pickens and being the mental head case that he has been and letting that affect his play. It drives me nuts that we're going to we openly talk about guys like Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, but I don't complain about their effort. I don't have to wonder if they're going to give 100% on any given play. Even if they can't pass block or run block, I know that they were trying against the Falcons in week 1. I know they were, even though they were bad at it. That's the problem I have with George Pickens right now. And that's the problem where I agree with what was it Diana Rossini, her article on The Athletic this week. We were all shocked to see that George Pickens' name was in a trade market. Maybe we shouldn't have been shocked, and maybe she just had 200 IQ this week, because I'm at the point where I now want him gone, because I think it hurts the locker room more to have a player like that than have the talent. Even though he's your best offensive target, your best offensive weapon, I think that hurts your locker room and hurts your offense more when you have a player that's not going to give 100% on any given play.
Yeah, because I mean, like, what's the answer? Like, what's going to satisfy him? Like more targets? Because then you're kind of just like rewarding it. And what kind of message does that send to the guys that are,
It's like we're
showing
dealing
up
with a
every
toddler
down? And
that's throwing a tantrum in Walmart. You either give them what they want, or you give them a reason to cry.
let me say this too. Like, I think that this is heightened up a level, but to what you were saying in terms of like the Steelers having, I feel like a lot of wide receivers around the league, kind of fall into that category, not to the same degree that George has necessarily, but like a lot of them are, it's just, I guess it's the nature of the position. Like,
I mean, even
I'll
the guy
never
we want to
understand
trade
it.
for, Devontae Adams, has had his moments on the sideline
Sure.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get to him in a little bit. But just, yeah, as far as this goes, I think like when you start to lose your teammates, when you start to lose people in the org, when you're openly going against them, that's when you lose me. I mean, listen, obviously I'm not going to put out there where I heard this from. All I'm saying is somebody in the organization this past week said we traded the wrong receiver, meaning Deontay Johnson, because the whole thing was they felt like they couldn't have those two guys together anymore in the same room. This person tends to feel like they traded the wrong one if they were going to split them up. And to be honest with you, I know hindsight's 2020. I know you would have had to pay Deontay Johnson a new contract after this year. He's going to be 30 years old in the near future. I think he's 29 right now, right? So I don't know what that looks like. But you know how I feel about Deontay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he certainly had his issues as well, which we acknowledged, but nowhere to this degree. And I think that you could have built a wide receiver room with him as the top guy in the pecking order, and it would have sufficed.
Yeah, and with George, even when he's not on the field and not giving the effort, when you're pouting openly on the sideline, no one's coming up to you on the sideline. No one wants to sit next to you or talk to you. And there's a reason why for that, because no one wants to hear it. No one wants to deal with it. And you can openly see him on the broadcast pouting or complaining or doing things through his helmet, apparently on Sunday night, which I didn't see on the broadcast. I don't know if you saw that in person, but apparently threw his helmet over the bench.
Oh no, I didn't see that. But I was asked if you saw some of the shots that Ed Thompson, the photographer for Steelers Now, got of George. Unbelievable. I mean, how clear you can see like the face tape or whatever you call it. Yeah, that he was wearing.
And I saw in Allen's article on Steelers Now talking about the situation, how there were times where George is just laying his head up, looking into the sky, and not even paying attention to what's going on in the game. He's not engaged right now. He's checked out, and if he's checked out, I'm checked out on him. I don't want him around anymore.
And the thing is, man, like they put all their chips, like we talked about how they put all their eggs in the Ayuk basket. And, obviously now there's the Devontae Adams thing. If they land him, it would kind of make up for it to a degree. But they also put all their chips in on George Pickens not doing this year. Like, I guess that they were just banking on, okay, we make him the clear-cut lead dog of this room. There's going to be this maturation that just suddenly takes place, and it hasn't happened. And I don't think it's going to happen. So I think that this was another, I don't know if miscalculation is the right word, but another misstep in terms of building this wide receiver room, just saying, George is the unquestioned guy. Like, I don't think he's the best player on the team, but before the season, I think we had the conversation on here. You could argue he's the most important because what happens if he goes down? Well, it's not due to injury, but you're not getting the player anyways. So might as well be injured.
Yeah, and something I was thinking about this week too, with the whole George Pickens stuff, wide receiver in general, and this is looking a little bit into the future. It's just going past this season. Is wide receiver in round one more of an option than it ever has been for the Steelers?
I mean, here's the thing. Like, I like I said, I don't know that I foresee them trading him right now in the offseason. Absolutely. And then round one wide receiver could definitely happen. If they get Devontae Adams, and like I said, I want to talk more about him because there's some more information that I got surrounding him and potentially another wide receiver. But, I guess it would depend on what happens contractually there with him. But if they trade George in the offseason, the wide receiver room and you don't have Van, like Van's a free, which I'm not saying that they should. Van Jefferson's a free agent. Like, so what, Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin, the only two receivers that you're turning over next year, really. So Scotty Miller's a free agent as well, if you want to include him as part of that conversation. So, yeah, I mean, you trade George, that certainly opens up the door for a first-round wide receiver, if it wasn't already. I mean, I think it's on the table right now. I would probably lean towards, like, a defensive tackle maybe because of the age of Cam Hayward. I think they want to start looking at the defensive side of the trenches now after they feel like hopefully the offensive line's complete. But, yeah, like, defensive line, wide receiver, they're probably take a running back in the middle rounds, like round 3 probably starts that conversation if they still have a round 3 pick. So yeah, I think wide receiver is definitely high up there.
All right. Well, when we were talking about wide receiver, you wanted to bring up Devontae Adams. So what is new on the Devontae Adams front with you?
So I think that, we started out the conversation last week talking about Devontae, and we know that he has the 2 years remaining of the contract, but we had assumed that the Steelers might just look at him as a rental because, how many teams, nobody's going to pay him those 2 years remaining at what they are. Anybody that's acquiring him is looking at him as a rental, or you want to negotiate those 2 years and do something different with the numbers prior to acquiring him. So you're going to have to talk to the Raiders. Obviously, they got to grant permission for that to happen. The Steelers were granted that permission, and they want to talk to Devontae because they don't want him to be a rental. They don't view him that way. They want to negotiate those 2 years and see if they can move some money around to make it more feasible to have him play out the remainder of that contract with the Steelers, not just have him be a rental. So I think that gives me a little bit more optimism in this whole thing, because I think if that's the case, there's more willingness, I think, from all parties if they are willing to do that. Like, I think if they were looking at him as a rental, I'd be a little bit more skeptical that they do the 3, which I think is what it's going to ultimately take. At the very least, I think a 3. Some team might be stupid and desperate and do it too, like the Jets with everything that's going on with them right now. If they're just like trying to make a Hail Mary heave on the 2024 season at this point, that could certainly happen. But I think the willingness to negotiate with him, hope that he is, I mean, that's potentially, like, you're talking about, he's going to turn 32 in December. You're talking about 2 years beyond this, 34 or 35-year-old, like, potentially could end his career now in Pittsburgh, I guess, if you're willing to do that. So that's interesting, because then you start to think, okay, is this guy they're trying to build their passing game around? Are they open to this because of the George Pickens stuff? Like, is it them moving George, whether it is, I don't see the Raiders necessarily being like, hey, give us Pickens back in the return. Like, I don't think that that's a route that they would want to go. I think with where they're at right now as an organization, picks are more valuable to them. But if it's even a separate deal, would the Steelers have more willingness to move George because you are getting Devontae Adams back and you have at least one guy, you're building the passing game around over the course of the next couple seasons?
And I think it opens up a similar conversation what we had with Brandon Ayuk, where if you bring in someone like that, if you restructure Devontae Adams' contract, we talked about how if you brought in Ayuk and you paid him his contract or what he was projecting to going to get from the Steelers, that might close the door on George Pickens on a second contract with the Steelers anyway. If they do the same thing with Devontae Adams, I got to imagine the conversation is pretty similar. Like, you're probably shutting the door, if the door is even open at all at this point, a little bit more if you're bringing in Devontae Adams and with his contract, and that's who you're going to be building around. And I'm so open to that right now because of how out I am on George Pickens. But I think it is encouraging that the Steelers are allowed to negotiate with him. I'm curious to see like how fast this could escalate, because the Steelers and the Raiders are playing this week.
The Steelers don't want it to be fast, I don't think, because I don't think the Raiders want to trade him to the Steelers before playing the Steelers. I think they want it to be after. So Adam Schefter was talking about it today, and he said the talks have kind of cooled off between the Raiders with the Jets and the Saints. The Jets just fired their head coach. Like, that's probably where their focus is right now. I know it was put out there like it wouldn't impact that, but then you hear Schefter say that, and that's interesting. Then as far as the Saints go, Derek Carr's going to miss multiple weeks now with this injury that he suffered yesterday. So does that impact their willingness to go get him, or does that impact Devontae's willingness to go there? I don't know. I'm not saying one way or another. It just raises these questions in your mind. But I think for the Steelers, it's this needs to get past Sunday for them to become, I don't know if favorites is the right word, but within that top group at the top of the mix, because I don't think the Raiders want to trade him to the Steelers prior to playing the Steelers.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Even if you
feel like, he's probably not going to suit up like days after getting there, Like he could. We saw Minkah Fitzpatrick immediately play for the Steelers. Like so, I think it's assuming that the hamstring's healthy. I don't know where he's at with that. So I think that the Steelers need this to get past their matchup with the Raiders to become like at the top of the food chain.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. We have like a month until the trade deadline, and curious to see how the dominoes fall. If he ends up going to the Jets, do the Steelers make a trade for Mike Williams, or at least open that door a little bit open like they did in the offseason? Revisit that. It's clear that they have to do something, and we've talked about that. They need to do something if they want to be serious about getting their offense better.
That's where I kind of want to go with the next thing here was like same conversation that I was having, same person that told me about the Devontae Adams information. I was like, so how do you think this plays out? They don't ultimately think that Devontae Adams is going to land with the Steelers. They said, give me, if I was told right now, the Steelers were definitely going to trade somebody, just guess who the player is. Their guess is DeAndre Hopkins. And I think that makes sense because you look around like the other names we've talked about, Courtland Sutton, Broncos are 3-2 right now. The Giants have won a couple football games. Their offensive line is playing great. They can run the football, whether it's, Singletary got hurt. Tyron Tracy steps right in and leads the league in rushing last week in his first start. So like, I think that the Giants might be in the mix to at least not have to sell off assets. So who knows if Darius Slayton's going to be in play. I think right now, when you look at the landscape of the league, it's very clear that the Titans aren't going to be players, and DeAndre Hopkins could certainly be on the market because of that. So I'm right in lockstep with that. I think if you're asking me right now, give you a player, gun to my head, who are the Steelers going to ultimately trade for here? My guess is DeAndre Hopkins.
I'd be good with that. And I said this last week. I said it the week before. We're literally begging for anybody at this point, and especially with the theatrics that we're getting from George Pickens right now and lack of effort, I am open to literally almost anybody. You name a wide receiver that is actively on an NFL roster, and I think that I would probably be okay with it.
Yeah, so he is he's unrestricted free agent after this year, so he is a rental. So obviously the money keeps going down every single week that passes for what the Steelers would owe him. We'll see. But so does that make you more or less interested? Because DeAndre Hopkins at his age, he will be 33 before next season starts. More or less interested in acquiring him.
So with his age and everything playing into it as a factor, I'm more interested in DeAndre Hopkins than I would be if he wasn't a rental. The fact that he's a rental makes me more interested because you're not on the hook for anything next year with him. And
see, I never know. I wouldn't want multiple years. I would kind of like to have one maybe with a low guaranteed money or nothing guaranteed, something like that, just to give you the option basically a little bit because of what else is in the receiver room right now, like that. So even if they get DeAndre Hopkins, to answer your question from earlier, 100%, I think receivers still in play first round.
I think it is in play no matter who they get, even if they trade for Devontae Adams. I think so. I think that, and you nailed it on the head. I think that going into round 1 next year, 2 positions I would be looking at are defensive tackle and wide receiver. And a lot of what position they actually pick will probably just be determined by who's on the board and where they're picking.
How would you feel if the Steelers took Ashton Genty?
Oh, I listen, he's having a phenomenal season. He is one of my two Heisman favorites.
Dane Brugler compared him to LaDainian Tomlinson. I mean, Dane doesn't just throw those out there either. Like, he's as good as it gets.
Listen, I looked at the numbers. Ashton Genty is on pace right now to break Barry Sanders' single season rushing yards record and touchdown records.
Yeah, despite not playing like a game and a half because of where the scores were at.
Yeah, he's a great player, but if I take away the player and I just look at the position, I don't want it. We already took a running back in round 1 a few years ago. I don't want to do it. I think that you can get by more with your running back situation than you can right now than your wide receiver position. You need to add to your wide receiver room.
Genty might be like a receiver though, too. I mean, he's nice out of the backfield.
I get it.
No,
I get it.
It certainly wouldn't be my first choice. I mean, I'm similar. I don't have as much issue with taking. I would rather take a running back in the first round than pay a running back big money between the two choices.
100%. Yeah.
But yeah, and the only way I'm doing it is if like the Steelers are picking mid to late 20s, I might be okay with it. Still, again, probably wouldn't be my first choice, but would have to see the board. But Ashton Genty's going to go probably like a team's probably going to take him in the top 10. I mean, Bijan won at 8. Like, I think that there's a team that will take him.
For sure. Right now, he's probably leading my Heisman right now. It's between him and Travis Hunter. And I understand people are probably going to think Travis Hunter is like just a cliche answer. But like when you're playing 120 snaps a game and you are very good at offense and defense, that is something that like you are, if you're playing both sides of the ball at that high of a level all game, you are the best player in college football. Just player. Maybe not best player at their position, but he's the best player. It's like Shohei Ohtani, except Shohei Ohtani is the best at both.
Yeah, Travis Hunter special. But anyway, hey, they could maybe use a corner too. Dante Jackson's only here for this year. Who knows what's going to happen with him? Corner might be up there as well.
I mean,
and he could play wide receiver.
If they could take Travis Hunter, take Travis Hunter, and he could play both. That fixes the problem.
Yeah, that'd be insane.
Has that ever happened in the NFL? Like on a serious level, has it ever happened in the NFL? I know like there's been players that have come in for like a play or two. Like I remember like JJ Watt coming in as like a fullback a couple times.
Like,
has anybody for more significant amount of snaps played on both sides of the ball that you can even think of?
No. Without looking it up, I have no clue if it's happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nothing comes to mind. Is there anything else Steelers related that's happened? I guess we should talk about some injuries, at least heading into. I mean, in this game, a lot of it for me, going back to the Cowboys game, changed when Nick Herbig had to leave the game with an injury.
You and I are probably going to be playing outside linebacker this Sunday. We might
made
get
the joke to Allen. I made the joke to Allen that I did get a call to see if I was healthy. I mean, when you lose in one game, Herbig, Leal, and who was the other out? Oh, Highsmith was already rolled out as well. So they know they're without 3 edge rushers across from TJ Watt. Isaiah Loudermilk is going to play edge, they said. So Jeremiah Moon, who was not good on Sunday. And then you got Isaiah Loudermilk to call up a couple guys probably from the practice squad. I would give Kyron Johnson a call on the Titans practice squad right now and bring him back. Sign him to the 53 immediately. I think he was just like part of the numbers crunch. I thought he had a great preseason and training camp and would 100% welcome him back. Obviously knows the system, so it wouldn't take a whole lot of acclimation there to get him ready to go for Sunday's game. So you got that. DeMonte KZ already rolled out as well. Michael Pruitt's going to miss yet another game. Man, I don't know what he did to that knee, but this is like he hasn't even practiced since that week 2 game against Denver. So pretty significant, clearly. And then the quarterback news, Russell Wilson going to practice in full. So, he's going to start with the 2s. We'll see how the week progresses. Still think Justin starts this week. So let's push everything back from what I said last week. I thought it was going to get a serious conversation this week. I don't see that happening now. So I'll say, going into that Sunday night game against the Jets, I think that's where there's going to be a decision made in terms of not just for that week, but I think we might find out more what the path forward is going forward for the rest of the year.
Do you think that going into this game, no, we're not going to have Cordell Patterson? Well, they're listed as doubtful, but like, you're not going to have Jalen Warren, Cordell Patterson. Do you think that we'll see more snaps from Ward and Champlin than what we saw against Denver, than we saw against Dallas? Or do you think they just try to run Najee and Justin a lot more?
Well, that didn't go well. I mean, maybe Justin. I thought that some of the QB designed runs went okay. That could certainly be a path forward.
Najee, man, that's the thing. He's injured, so
he's not effective.
Why would you want him to be your bell cow if he's not 100%? I think that you could get some good things out of Ward and Champlin. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Champlin played 11 snaps on Sunday night. Jonathan Ward, I think, played 3, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 3. So, yeah, I mean, 14 total snaps between the 2 of them. And Ward was a guy, man, I thought that they were going to give Ward a nice workload, just like the buzz around the team going into last week. Like, there was some legit buzz that Ward was going to have a big role on Sunday night. And that's why I made the prediction that I did, that he was going to have a better game than Najee. Well, he only played 3 snaps. So definitely didn't foresee that coming. I don't know. Again, maybe they were waiting for this Sunday game, knowing that they were still not going to have Warren and Patterson for this one, to be ruled out this early in the week too. All those guys, like that's the scary part about it, because you just feel like, okay, these are more serious. Like, are they even going to be able to get back for next week? When you roll out somebody this early in the week, it's typically not a good sign for the following week either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I don't know what they're going to do at running back. I think they need to just see what happens if you give them more snaps, give them more carries, and see what happens. Like I thought from especially Ward in the preseason, I thought you saw a lot of good things, and I understand the preseason is a lot different than what they're dealing with now in the regular season. But
sure.
I think that he deserves the opportunity to at least see what can happen, especially if Najee's going to be injured and not running 100%. And I'm not taking that away from Najee, but if he's not 100%, I don't think he should be getting the bell cow of the snaps. I think that you either need to run Justin more than you are right now, or give the other running backs more carries,
or all the above. Yeah, that's all I got right now. Is there anything else Steelers related that we haven't talked about? Again, if you're just tuning in, if this is your first time, we will not be previewing this game against the Raiders because of Steelers Saturday sit down. Well, we will do so this upcoming Saturday. So nothing to add on that matchup right now. So I think that's it. Anything else, Tyler?
Yeah, last thought. I brought it up in the beginning. We didn't really touch on it a ton. What do you make of them on third down? Why have they been so bad on third down defense?
Well, at least in this game, I feel like I think it was Steichen understanding the Steelers defense and being able to pick it apart in that first game that we're talking about here over the course of the last 2 weeks, because you look at what Steichen did even last year in Indy and then the year prior when he was Philly's OC, just the way that they were able to pick apart. I think he understands what the Steelers want to do defensively, understands where the weaknesses are in that, and was able to take advantage. Last week, I think Dak was really identifying, like, Beanie Bishop is a liability right now on the Steelers defense on the back end. And I think, he was 6 of 8 throwing to Beanie Bishop, had a damn near perfect passer rating. There was a touchdown thrown with Beanie in coverage. I think that in this game, Dak just understood. He found the matchups that he wanted. He was ripping the seam a ton. They were asking Minka to cover a lot of ground because they were having Sean Elliott play up in the box quite a bit, so they were playing single high. I think that they took advantage of the Steelers' weaknesses that they still have on defense because they have some new pieces. I don't think Patrick Queen looks like he's comfortable yet. I think that's pretty clear. I think that there's been a ton of miscommunication. I think Peyton Wilson has absolutely looked like a rookie. I don't think he's been very good. I think the last 2 weeks have been his worst. I think that he's going in the wrong direction right now. I still am very high on Peyton Wilson overall. I think he's going to have his growing pains, and we expected that. But the last 2 weeks, I think he's been worse than he was the previous 3. So I think it all kind of just comes to, and then the obviously the health. Like, again, I think that this game really turned on its head once Nick Herbig got hurt. I'm not the guy that's going to sit here and typically go with the, what ifs and stuff like that. But I really do wonder if this game has a different result simply by Nick Herbig not getting hurt in this football game, because the pressure that he was putting on, the way that he was impacting this game, Jeremiah Moon was getting crushed once that injury happened. So I just wonder, Nick Herbig doesn't go out, do we get a different result?
Yeah, I'm curious to see how they're going to react. If this is a good week I know we're going to preview it on Saturday, but this is a good week, I feel like, for the Steelers to bounce back against the Raiders because of the opportunity they have. Raiders quarterback situation, not great. I know the Steelers' health on defense still recovering from some guys, but I think they have a good opportunity this week.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, we don't even know who we're playing at quarterback. They haven't made Antonio Pearson not decided between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. So, yeah. They don't know there. No, and then on the other side, no Christian Wilkins. He's going on IR. Obviously, no Devontae Adams. So we'll see how things shake out. But this does seem like a get-right spot. I say that with hesitancy because it's the Steelers and anything can happen.
Imagine they just file the paperwork for Adams right when the game ends and he just gets on the Steelers plane.
I'm all for it. So, yeah. Anything else?
No. Let us know what you think about our background. Like Smitty said in the beginning, first episode having this background. Shout out to Joe. Check out the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show that is airing every Wednesday at, is it 5 Eastern?
Yeah, I think the time kind of vary. I'm pretty sure tomorrow is like 5:30 or 6. It just depends on, yeah.
Every
So
Wednesday,
if
live
you hit
show.
if you hit the notification bell, you'll know exactly when they go live. But yeah, they do it live typically, and then I put it up as a podcast for them. So if you're listening as well and want to get it that way, you can do so that way too. If you don't like the background, be sure to let us know, because then I'm gonna have to talk to Joe. And from the roster, he might get cut. Smitty from Around the 412 here. And while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keek at Keek's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keek's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app, The Cut. Book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keek's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. Big shout out to Keek. Big shout out to all of our sponsors. Again, to Joe for putting this together, the backdrop. Absolutely love it. Think it looks sick. Let us know how you feel about it in the comments, or anything that we discussed today in the comments. Of course, leave us a question for a future episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Follow us everywhere at Around the 412. And whether you are watching or listening, be sure to check out the description of the show. All the links for our sponsors in there, as well as Year 7 rocking around the 412. We are pumped about the mission, really starting to heat up. We are in October now, so things are getting pretty serious over here on that end. We've already raised enough money to do 12 tags. We're also going to try to help out a few different families in the area as well. So the link to donate is down below. You can read the entirety of the mission there, but just to give you guys the skinny, every single penny that is donated goes directly to helping kids in the 724 and 412 area codes, giving them a Christmas they otherwise wouldn't have. Tyler and I never had to worry about where Christmas was coming from growing up. This is our way of giving back. And in the last 2 years, and now this is year 3, we started partnering up with the East Rochester Salvation Army to adopt kids off the Angel Tree. If you want to get involved in just that portion of the mission, that needs to be done by December 9th. So that is well in advance. You're probably going to want to get that tag, because December 9th is when it has to be back to the Salvation Army, not just the deadline to donate. So you got to have it to me or to the East Rochester Salvation Army by December 9th. So if you want to get involved, hit me up, hit Tyler up, hit us up at Around the 412. However you got to do it, however you got to get in touch with us, anyway works. So that's all we got. Also, everything custom designs. It's kind of weird right now because her account on Etsy got hacked. So go follow the Facebook page. That's in the description. You can do that. I think she can still take orders through there, but it's this whole big thing. She's trying to get her website done to be able to start taking orders again. So it's a whole complicated process. People suck, but Haley doesn't. Everything custom designs. Be sure to check her out. Other than that, for Tyler, for Smitty, this has been the Around the 412 Steelers show. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.